fire here. Sometimes computers get picky. You go from Zoom to Teams to all these different apps, and then eventually it starts fussing, and you have to reboot. So.
Let's see what's going on. Okay, well, I will go ahead and get started while Nick is figuring out what's going on with his computer. It looks like a couple others are still joining us, but I will just start with a little bit of overview of why we're all here today. So I am Carla Valentine. I'm with the Department of Commerce, and I'm a program manager with Commerce. We manage programs for entrepreneurs within the state. And so one of the initiatives, and so currently we have Innovate ND, which hopefully some of you have heard about, which has been a program we've had around for many years to assist entrepreneurs that are interested in getting a business going. And so we now are looking at partnering, or in the process of partnering with ILT Academy to start a new initiative. And there we go. Let Nick in. Hi, Nick. I was just starting to give a little bit of an overview.
Okay.
And so we've received federal dollars from the Small Business State Small Business Credit Initiative. It's called SSBCI. So each of the states received some of these dollars. Part of the dollars that North Dakota received, they're actually the technical assistance dollars we're putting towards entrepreneurs and this program, this initiative that we're working. And so we put out an RFP and have awarded that to ILT Academy. And so this will be the opening funnel for any and all entrepreneurs within the state. We will offer, and I'll let Nick and Jason go into the offering of what all of this will be. They will explain it much better than I will. But we hope to have this program up and running first quarter of 2023. We're all ready to go on our end. We're just waiting for the federal treasury to release the dollars to us. And so we don't quite know when that's going to happen, but we're hopeful it will be soon. And so once we have the dollars, we'll sign a contract with ILT Academy and we will move forward with that. And so I will hand it over to you, Nick and Jason, to introduce yourselves. And then Julie, if you want to introduce yourselves, and the other members from the board, if we all just want to introduce, and then we'll continue the conversation from there. Go ahead, Nick.
Awesome. Jason, you want to go first? I'll go
Yeah.
first, and I'll hop in.
Sure. So yeah, Jason Michaels, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ILT Academy. Been working with Nick and ILT for about 8 months now. Before that, I was entrepreneur in residence. I was doing some mentoring for the students that were going through ILT. So I'll let Nick talk a little bit more about what ILT does, but just want to throw in too, we were really excited. Carla, thank you so much for setting this up. Obviously we're in the business of helping entrepreneurs very quickly and very safely launch new businesses. But we do have a strong value of social impact on that. And so when we got the opportunity to have this discussion, we're really excited to see how we could help. So go ahead, Nick.
Cool. Hey guys, my name's Nick. I'm an innovator and an entrepreneur. I help empower people to get their ideas off the ground. And we've created a company called ILT Studios and ILT Academy to do that. ILT simply stands for I Like That. And before I jump into this, I'll hand it off to you guys so we can hear a little bit more about who you are.
I can start. Hi, I'm Julie Horntvedt, and I'm the director of the DD Council. And you'll hear from the rest of the members here on the council, but we're really interested in how people with disabilities that have ideas to start their own business can fit into this and the programming, and how you can see that working for the people we represent. So that's why we wanted to meet with you guys today.
Cool, great, thanks.
Should I just call on members and go one at a time as I see you guys? Okay, yeah. Cheryl?
Hi, my name is Cheryl Beer. I'm from Wilson, and I'm on the DD Council.
Nice to meet you.
Cheryl.
Nice to meet you too.
Toby?
Hi, my name is Toby Lundstead. I'm from Mandan. I am part of the DD Council, representing my daughter who is 8. I don't know what else to say, I guess.
That's perfect. Thanks, Toby. Kim?
Hey everybody, I am Kim Ruby and I am the Director for Special Health Services in the North Dakota Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm also the Title V Director for the state of North Dakota, which is all maternal and child health programs under Title V. My office used to be at the North Dakota State Capitol, but I'm mainly home-based like Julie now. And our home is right north of Bismarck outside of Wilton, North Dakota. So happy to be here.
Well, nice to meet you.
Thanks. Veronica?
Hi, I'm Veronica Zietz. I'm with the North Dakota Protection and Advocacy Project. I've been a member of the DD Council for about a year and a half. Our office is in the Wells Fargo building in downtown Bismarck, but today I'm in the Capitol cafeteria.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
And Brittany
ahead.
joined us too. Sorry, one more.
Julie, Brittany just texted me and said she can't talk right
Oh.
now. So she's just listening. This is Toby. Sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you. Brittany's a parent too that lives in Bismarck.
Okay, very cool. Well, I will I'll share my screen so I can give you kind of an overview of, like, you know, as Kyler was mentioning, what is the program that we've developed and put together, and I'll share a little bit of my some additional background that I think might be relevant. All right, now I just got to find that button again. Oh, there it is. Okay, share. Pick on the right screen. Okay, now you guys disappeared. Let me. Okay, now I can see again. All right, can you guys see my screen? Okay, awesome. So, as I mentioned, my name's Nick. I'm the CEO and founder of ILT Studios. ILT simply stands for I Like That. We are focused on empowering underestimated entrepreneurs in underserved geographies, so rural, urban, and informal settlements. My quick background is that I've done a lot of different interesting innovation projects. I've worked for a couple major corporations. I've developed a ton of software. My most recent startup prior to ILT was a company called the Vitals app. The Vitals app was a piece of technology that we developed to help anyone with invisible or visible disabilities communicate with law enforcement in the moment of crisis. So basically what we did was we worked with the Department of Health and Human Services and the Autism Society in Minnesota to develop a product that would help people that can't communicate. And so they would carry a little plastic dongle on their person. When that little plastic device got within 80 feet of a first responder, it would share information with the first responder so they knew all the de-escalation techniques, any IEPs, if it was a student that was still in school, or any information that that person or the caregiver wanted to share with any first responder or EMT to keep that person safe. We launched it in 57 police departments around the state of Minnesota. We had 500 communities around the world that started to adopt this technology, and we were able to get it on the waiver system in Minnesota inside of 6 months to keep people safe. And I've spent a lot of time working with different advocacy groups here in Minnesota, most notably an organization called Pacer Center, which is located in Bloomington and provides advocacy services for students in elementary and high school and beyond. I think I was on their advisory board for about 10 years. So I'm very familiar with the accessible space, and I love trying to figure out solutions that can help people get access to information through technology, especially adaptive technology. That being said, one of the things that after I left the Vitals app and started ILT, again, we focus a lot on empowering what we call underestimated entrepreneurs. These are people that they've got lots of good ideas, but what they're missing is the know-how of how to take an idea and turn it into a product or a solution. And so we created this company called ILT Academy to teach people the lean startup process. So basically, if you're not walking around with $1 million, how do you get your idea off the ground? And over the last 18 months, we've partnered with a lot of really great organizations across the state of Minnesota, Kenya, and then now starting to across North Dakota, get this in the hands of more innovators and entrepreneurs. We want to be the place that teaches anybody this skill on how to do it. Now, we know one of the problems that we're trying to solve is it's hard to find these good ideas and teams to invest in. There's lots of people with ideas, but they don't know how to do it or how to commercialize the product. And it's not because they can't do it. It's just they've never done it before. They're not qualified. And so we want to solve that problem. And we want to do it in underserved markets and geographies where it's even more difficult. At the end of the day, our mission is to find these people with the groups, partners, sponsors in different regions, and then meet the entrepreneur where they're at. Not everybody's ready to launch a product or service. Some people want to be on a team, but if you know how to play the game, it's easier to be on the team. And when I say that, meaning like if we said we're going to go play basketball, if you don't know the rules of the game, it's hard to be part of that team. So can we teach and train more people on how to do this? How can we connect them to a community of other like-minded innovators and entrepreneurs and problem solvers, and then get them connected to all available execution and commercialization resources? Now, that's why we're really focused on startup education. We know that this isn't a talent. This is a skill, which means it can be taught and trained. We also know that we can empower entrepreneurs to do this wherever they're at. Like one of the things that's really cool about technology is that provides access in ways that couldn't be done before. And so we want to make sure that entrepreneurs know how to do this. And if they want to do it and stay in their community, we think we can help them. Now, our program, of course, we started in person, and you can see on the picture on the left, it was the week before all the lockdowns and the pandemic really hit the US. And we were all together in the room. You can tell we're having fun because we're all smiling. And then the next week, the governor of Minnesota locked down the state, and we had to turn this in-person thing into a virtual program. But it was the best thing for us because it allowed us to reach more people faster. At the end of the day, though, this isn't just about getting more businesses going. This is about creating healthy and thriving communities full of other people that are working to solve the challenges in their community. Silicon Valley isn't going to solve the problems in North Dakota. It's the people in North Dakota that are going to do it. And especially when it comes to other people with different kinds of disabilities, if you don't understand them, you're not going to solve that problem. And so how can we empower more people with the skill to take those ideas and those problems and turn them into commercially viable businesses? Over the last 18 months, we've done this with 20 cohorts, 380 founders, and they've raised approximately $4.2 million to get their ideas off the ground. A lot of the entrepreneurs that have come through this have never done this before. We've had a couple students that have been on the spectrum that have come through or have had other developmental disabilities, and we've been able to support them through the process. There are some different things that we need to do when someone has developmental disabilities, and this process is pretty rigorous, but we've shown that we can do it and we can help any entrepreneur through this process. Now, if you're wondering, well, what does this virtual thing look like? This is our little Gather platform. So it kind of looks like a little video game. So it's kind of like Zoom, but a video game together. And then you can see on the right, we do this all virtually. So we moved the Post-it note process and made it more accessible so we can work with entrepreneurs all over. We still do, now that the pandemic's over, we do get together again, and we do in-person showcases and workshops so we can connect and engage with the entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, we want to be the place to train anyone that wants to learn how to practice these skills. And so, one of the things that we do with all the students is we ask them to draw a picture of what the future is supposed to look like. And I drew a sketch of a bunch of people, and then I found a better sketch. So this is what underestimated entrepreneurs look like to me. And 18 months later, these are the entrepreneurs that have come through the program. This is just one of the 20 cohorts, but all over the state of Minnesota, all different learning types, all different business types. We have PhDs, we got high school students, we got college students, we got pipe welders. It's really, really cool to see what's happened over the last 18 months as we've been able to expand our reach and get in front of more entrepreneurs. Now we've got a couple different products. The way that we do this is we have community workshops where entrepreneurs and innovators and problem solvers get to try out the program or an aspect of the program to see if this is something they want to do. And our goal is to get them into one of our 2 10-week programs to help validate their idea. Now, there's one program, Carla, I don't have it listed on here because it's not the primary program that we sell, but one of the programs that we did last year was with a group called Rural SEP. Rural SEP works with a lot of entrepreneurs that are below the poverty line. And we were able to create a special program to provide additional resources for the entrepreneurs that were coming through because they needed more than just 1 day a week classes. And so I just want to put it out there that if there are learners that have different levels of disabilities that want to engage in a program like this, I believe if there's a will, there's a way, and we can figure out how to make it work. But just know that we've got different ways to teach and train learners. At the end of the day, as entrepreneurs are coming through from idea to concept, we heavily focus on making sure that the entrepreneurs know how to do what's called active customer discovery and validate their marketplace. Even if that marketplace is small, it's important to make sure that you're building something that people want and that and then you can turn it into a viable business. We jokingly say in the class, you have to make more than $0 if you're going to have a business. And so we think that that's true regardless if it's a for-profit, nonprofit, or product. And our programs are designed to meet the entrepreneur where they're at in the process of developing out that idea and then help them move forward so that they can connect with the other resources that are already available in the ecosystems, the SBDCs and the G-Betas and fellowships and Techstars and Lift programs. There's lots of resources out there. We just need more entrepreneurs to better understand how to explain what they're doing, have an actionable plan to move it forward, and then get in front of more people with that idea and plan. Just a couple quick program highlights. One of the things that we do is we help the entrepreneurs get better at pitching their ideas, right? And so we have this thing called the 30-second pitch night. It's a total blast. You have to give your pitch 8 times to other people, and then they give you feedback on it. And it's important. It's not just the same pitch. What we do is we challenge the entrepreneurs to come up with multiple versions of that pitch because, you don't always get a second chance to give that pitch and to figure out what works from what doesn't. And so that's, again, we're helping entrepreneurs to practice these different skills. We connect them with mentors along the way to make sure that they've got access to people that can help them think through their idea while they're working on their entrepreneur skills. We also work with an organization called Prime Academy, and I will update this also to include Emerging Digital Academy. But Emerging Digital Academy in Fargo is based off of one of the companies that I worked with in the Twin Cities called The Nerdery. It was basically 400 nerds in a room, and they needed more people to learn how to code, so they created Prime Academy, which Emerging Digital Academy is using to teach and train coding. And they connect with our entrepreneurs to get free prototypes built of their ideas. We do virtual showcases. So sometimes we do these in persons, but sometimes we do them virtually. You can see if I zoom in here, everybody was having fun because we got little hearts. And but basically, all the entrepreneurs get like a booth, and then everybody that comes to the event walks around. It's kind of like a big science fair. And you go talk to the different startups, and they tell you all about your business. This is with our partners, Red Wing Ignite, which is a small town in southeastern Minnesota. They were one of the first sponsors of ILT Academy in Minnesota. In fact, you can see these 2 stars on the left was in St. Cloud in Minnesota, where we started. We've quickly expanded to 11 locations. We did our first cohort last year in Kenya with the national government. And we just keep moving forward, seeing what we can do to help entrepreneurs get their ideas off the ground. Just a couple pieces of feedback. So, and the impacts that we've had in the community. This is Marshall Erickson, who led the Red Wing Ignite program prior to having our program in their community. They only had 10 people in the program. This quickly jumped to 200 people that signed up or applied. And multiple entrepreneurs coming out of our program have received Launch Minnesota grants. Another one launched her business within 30 days. Everybody that came through the program and that completed it moved their idea 1 to 2 stages forward. So even the people that were coming in with the idea or that were further along, they were able to move that idea forward, which we think is pretty cool. This is Anamaya. Anamaya was a entrepreneur that came through, and she kind of blurted out this quote as she was standing next to me. And I was asking her a little bit more about it, and she was like, Nick, I signed up for this program, and I've been working on it for over a month, and we did more in the last 2 hours to push my idea forward. She called me about 30 days later, saying she raised $50,000 in a coffee shop in central Minnesota because she was able to clearly articulate her idea, her plan, and how she was going to move her business forward. This is a guy named Ryan Graham. Ryan went through our program. He was at the College of St. John St. Ben's, which is a private college in central Minnesota. Again, in all the entrepreneur stuff, full ride scholarship at St. John's, and just felt like our program was showing him stuff that he hadn't learned. I actually came to find out he was part of a select entrepreneur group at St. John St. Ben's. And again, it was really cool to hear him say, how much he got out of the 10-week program that we offer. This is Otrify. Otrify is a startup in the ag space here in the Twin Cities. They actually moved from Canada, came through this national accelerator called Techstars. We were able to help them find product market fit. They finished the program. I think they raised a couple $100,000, but this was 4 years ago. Today, they're at 27 employees, up from the 2 founders, and they're in 4 countries internationally now doing business with Cargill, which is the largest privately owned business in the world. And then Virtua, Ali and Abby came to me. They had heard about ILT. We showed them how to do proper active customer discovery because they wanted to launch a telehealth platform for pets. And they started working on this right before the pandemic. They couldn't have timed it better. About 8 months after launching their product, they were featured in Wired magazine as one of the top 3 telehealth platforms for pets. Really, really cool story. As they worked really hard to understand their market and get their product off the ground. So at the end of the day, these are our programs at a high level. We work really hard to make sure these entrepreneurs it's kind of like a boot camp on steroids. And we make sure that these entrepreneurs better understand their idea. They can clearly articulate their pitch in 30 seconds, a 1-page business plan, a 90-day action plan to move it forward, all while getting deeper connections within the community. I know Jason, as Jason mentioned, we met because we were both mentors in another program. And, Jason, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you experienced as you were, why you decided ultimately to join the team, because you'd been, a mentor and collaborator for many of our entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, my first experience, like Nick said, we were both both mentors at an accelerator in downtown Minneapolis called Beta. It's where we kind of got introduced to each other. But my first experience with the ILT was to be a feedbacker on that 30-second pitch night he was referring to. When I was impressed with how the entrepreneurs were actually able to pitch even 3 weeks into the class, I thought it was pretty cool. And then I attended the founder showcase for the same cohort and was just amazed by, how articulate they were. I mean, they were, 75% of them were ready to go, even though they hadn't gone to the advanced class. They could pitch to an investor, today. So kind of thought, it'd be really cool to get, like I said, some social impact cohorts going, some other things going on, and help Nick scale his business. And that's why I decided to join the team. But really just seeing the impact of the education had on those founders, it was amazing. I've seen a lot of pitches. I've been pitched a lot of times, and they were all doing quality VC type investor ready pitches at the end of the 10 weeks that would get attention of VCs that if they had an investable business, they were very well pitched. So.
And Carla, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. I know you came to a 30-second pitch night to kind of check it all out.
I did, and you guys, it was really fun. So one of the things that is really cool about what ILT Academy is doing is they have their platform, and you kind of saw pieces of it, but it really is fun where you have your little avatar and you can walk into individual rooms. And so it can be a small room where they are pitching to 3 or 4 of us, and then we provide feedback. They go to another room and do the same thing over and over. And it is really interesting. It's fun. Everybody's excited and having a good time. And so it's been great. And I hope to do it more often.
It's like speed dating, but with investor pitching.
Yeah. Yeah. What questions do you guys have? What did you like best about what we shared, and what questions do you guys have?
Hi, this is Veronica. So maybe I missed it because this is just a lot of content, but you talked about like the 10-week program. Like how much of an, a hopeful entrepreneur's time does that take for the 10-week program? Like, what does that really look like? Is that a full day, a couple hours here and there? Is there work on your own? Is there work as a group?
Yeah, no, really great question. So the class experience is, so we run classes, a cohort, which is basically just a group of students. It's a 4-hour long class. We typically run them at night from 6 to 10 p.m. That way you can just roll out of bed and jump into our virtual space, like Kyler was mentioning. And it's all online. All you need is a camera and a computer. And you can connect and engage. They're all practically led. So we have an online curriculum that you follow ahead of the class with like the learning materials that we're going to cover. And then what we're doing in the classroom time is we take a practical approach to actually showing you how to use these different tools while working on your idea. So it really gives the students a chance to figure out what they have going on and if there's a real business here. And what we found is some of the entrepreneurs by the end of the class realize that this isn't the business that they want to go launch. But now that they know how to do it, they can apply it on the next idea that they have, which sometimes is like a couple weeks later.
That's helpful. Then as a second part of the question is, so like the overall outcome of this for an entrepreneur, like I love the idea of a pitch and an elevator speech that is like a quick, easy way for people to really understand what you're wanting to do. But to me, that's something that might be really helpful if you're like looking for investors or a small business loan or something, where some of our people might be doing more like grassroots kind of things that maybe won't necessarily require like a huge infusion of funds. So like, is it going to be practical to the fact of like, this is how, you file the appropriate paperwork to be a business. This is how you do taxes. This is how will it have some of those more practical pieces in it?
So there's a lot of great resources already in the network, like the SBDC, the SBA, SCORE, the innovation centers that provide those kind of some of those nuts and bolts, like where is that information located on Commerce's website, we're really focused on is making sure that the entrepreneurs can answer the hard questions, which is, why are you going to sell this pet rock? Like, how is that a business? And if you want to make it a business, we can show you how to turn that into a business. But does anybody want a pet rock? And how do you know that?
Well, I might. It might be a really cool pet rock.
That's right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, but how do you know? How can you validate that you should spend the next 10 years of your life trying to turn your pet rock idea into a business? Those are the questions that we can answer. And then following a program like ours, that's when going to the SBDC or one of these other organizations to go, this needs to be a business and I can prove it. Because the nuts and bolts stuff, unfortunately, there's lots of books on how to, like, file your LLC. That stuff's easy. This is the hard stuff that if more entrepreneurs knew how to do this, we'd see more innovative businesses. They don't need to be billion-dollar companies. They can be tiny companies that just exist in a region, but we need more people to understand why they're doing it and how they're going to make this a sustainable business.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add too is that pitch. I mean, yeah, it's investor worthy, but the ability to talk about your business, I mean, that goes to customers, that goes to debt financing if you're talking to your banker. I mean, however they're going to fund it, doesn't have to be a venture, investor worthy pitch. This pitch is going to everybody, so it's very valuable to master that art regardless. So,
Yeah,
and to know if you should. I mean, a lot of people, they think I've got a business idea. The first thing they do is run out and they file for an LLC, and then they go and they get a bank account, and they go and do all these things, right? Or like what I did when one of my companies developed a website for, tens of thousands of dollars that nobody wanted. And so what we're trying to get them to that point is, like, to Nick's point, discovering, hey, should they actually go through with this? Because you can de-risk your own business a little bit by figuring out, hey, there's a market for it. Should I actually build it? If I build it, will people come?
Yeah.
So
That's helpful. Thank you. Hearing what you have to say about this, this sounds like a really good, like, part one, but I do kind of think there might need to be a part two for some individuals with disabilities. I know there's books and a lot of content and resources on how to file an LLC and get a business loan and those things, but I think those feel very unattainable for some folks with disabilities. So to have more like one-on-one instruction in that process might be helpful. So that would just be my thought, that there might need to be a part two, and maybe you guys could also assist with that. I don't know.
Right.
Well,
Yeah. Maybe think about that. I was thinking the same thing.
Well, and actually, so that's one of the reasons why I was bringing up this other program that we ran with the rural SEP group. So it's based off of this overall program, but they felt they also needed more supports for the entrepreneurs to get that follow-up and one-on-one care. And that's one of the things that we'd love to talk about, especially if there are other resources available for those entrepreneurs, because there are a lot of additional things that you need to figure out and understand, especially if you're going to move that idea forward. So totally agree with you guys.
I think, Brittany, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, I'm the latecomer. I had questions similar to what Veronica ended with there. When I got on, you were talking about how you've worked with a variety of diagnoses and I guess support level needs. And so I was curious about that particular part of the program, or as you just described, maybe an extension of. And to follow on something you just said too, if there's other available resources, I think it sounds fantastic. I like the passion in your voice, and I was telling Toby that behind the scenes. I like how you're explaining things, and it's clear that it's not just "ooh, I have an idea, I did this." Great, like it sounds like you would be engaging, and that's half the battle. But the other half is staff shortage, the support, those other resources. So if we have Susie and John who want to maybe engage in this, and they have some ideas on their own, or maybe they want to engage in it and they need some help brainstorming, to what extent does this program support it from the beginning of a thought to the possibility of doing it, that doesn't necessarily have to rely on, say, agency staff that are supporting them for their basic care needs, or if there's not other natural resources available? And then are there any components of this that take into consideration or referral information for benefit management. If we take in additional income, a lot of people that we associate with who are reliant on benefits to pay for the much needed daily supports could jeopardize those benefits with, significant income or chunks of income here and there.
Right, right. Yeah, I definitely understand, and I've heard that, especially from, obviously I'm not as familiar with the rules in the disability space in North Dakota, but have definitely heard that from a number of parents and caregivers on the Minnesota side, where they can't even do it. Like, having a side hustle could significantly impact the benefits that they could receive. I definitely, we don't claim to be experts in that, but we definitely love to solve problems, and we love to solve problems with business. And if we can support an entrepreneur that has a disability, and we can figure out a way to make it work, or is in the disability space, or it's a parent that like sees a problem, which is one of the things that we love, teaching. Like, how do you find a problem that you can solve many times for many people with the same situation, and turn that into a business? We'd love to help there. And part of it's kind of discovering, like, what's the best way to go about supporting, those individuals. So, one of the things that we do, not to over answer here, but even in the as product developers, we're looking for good problems to solve and people that want to solve them, and finding out what the best solution is. And that might be where we customize our program, which is what we do with a lot of different groups, so that it meets the needs of the entrepreneur. So wherever they're at in this process of going from an idea to a commercialized product, what's the best way for us to do it? And to be frank, and Jason, maybe I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, there's lots of ways to design your business based on, different circumstances that you have or need, so that ultimately we don't want to, especially if someone's receiving additional supports, we want to make sure that we're not impacting those supports along the way. They'd be different considerations in the same way that if you have a for-profit or a nonprofit, it's all in the design of your business. I don't know, Jason, if you have anything you want to add there too.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add that, going into this discussion, we had kind of talked about, number one, we'd love to do something like this. And number two, that we would have to do something different than just our normal programming, right? We couldn't just say, hey, let's do a cohort 4 hours a night, once a week, standard programming. Veronica, to answer your question, yes, we have office hours during the day where students can actually come and get one-on-one help. So we're basically, if they're struggling with homework, if they're struggling with whatever the content, they miss a class for whatever reason, we do catch up. So we have teacher assistants, we have, other facilitators. I mean, it's a pretty good support system around these entrepreneurs. But so we would be looking to you as well if we wanted to move forward, is like, okay, how do we sit down and make this work for the folks that you would like to push through this program? So we probably need to customize maybe some content, maybe some scheduling. We might have to, maybe do some more some more one-on-one, more open office hours during the day. But we can, we're definitely willing to look at how do we make this work, for you as well. Because like I said, we love the concept of this, and we'd love to try it out. So.
Ooh, I have a question on that then. Veronica kind of touched on it too, having maybe a 2.0 or a separate track for different needs. Is there a rewind, like a pre-academy course where you don't have to have an idea, you don't have your concept, but you learn the framework, the beginning intro to different ways of possibly setting things up income wise, the basics of, and there's other coordinating supports that we would have access to too, but there's able accounts, there's, like you talked about, profit, nonprofit, there's, if it's, ends up being kind of a wash on income versus expenses, there's all sorts of things that way, but that's a whole nother world that would need some intro guidance. And I don't know to what extent this would do some of that, but if there was a pre-class even or something, I don't know if that would help meet the needs to then step up to, oh, I have an idea, or I have a couple ideas, and then coaching through the academy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, part of where this came from was the need that needed to be addressed for entrepreneurs that have never done this before, or they've only done it 2 or 3 times. And obviously our expertise was in starting things, but how do we put this into a program so we can teach more people that? Part of what I hear you saying is that there's a need in the marketplace, specifically in the disability space, with people that are trying to start businesses, where there's some additional, I'm not sure if I would call them like learning modules, or, and of course they're on the pre side, where people can learn about those different components. And that's certainly something that we would be interested in figuring out how to develop, especially if there's a need or a marketplace for it. A market, not a marketplace. Does that make sense?
Is that kind of like this
Yeah.
this workshop, the 3-hour start? Is that where people go to like take that first kickoff? Like, this might work for me, or?
Yeah, well, sort of. So part of why I was bringing this up is that we use this as a way to get the students thinking about how to unpack, explore, and define a problem, right? Like, why are you doing this in the first place? And what do you know, right? So we call it, I'm just zooming in here, like, what is that interesting problem or solution that most people haven't seen yet? Like, you've been thinking about this for some reason. And then how do we unpack that? Every idea isn't an idea. It's actually a problem with a solution with customers in a context. And how do we break that apart so that we can understand the parts and pieces? Because there's lots of ways to solve problems with different solutions, and which solution fits best with your customers. So we use this like peanut butter and jelly sandwich analogy in class. Like, what is the problem we're trying to solve with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Well, it kind of depends, right? But it could be you're trying to have a family meal with your kids. Or it could be that you're trying to go on a picnic and you need a portable food solution, right? All right, well, what are the ways to serve peanut butter and jelly? Well, between 2 pieces of bread, of course. We could blend it. We could dehydrate it. We could put it in a toothpaste tube and make it into paste. Like, there's lots of ways to deliver peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then which customers want which solutions? I know the ones that the astronauts want. They just want it in the tube to squirt in their mouth, right? So those are the kind of things that we want. And by the way, then the context is important. Are we eating in 0 Gs, or are we eating at the park in Minot, right? There's lots of different things to be thinking about. And that's what we want to teach people, is how to do this regardless of the solution or regardless of the problem that they're trying to solve. And then how do you get proper feedback from your customers on what they like best, what could be better, and what are the new ideas that they could come up with? Because I don't, now I was going to try to tie it back to the pet rock thing we talked before, but I won't. That'd be too hard.
Well, and the thing is if you're talking about, well, should it be a nonprofit? Should it be an LLC? Should it be a C Corp? When you're talking about some of those things, that should actually come afterwards, right? Because depending on what the outcome is of what is the problem, solution, or product or service or whatever it is, it shouldn't be a C Corp if it's never going to incorporate and take investment money, right? If it shouldn't be, maybe it's better off for a nonprofit in whatever situation is that you're working on, just so that there are no issues with benefits and things like that. Totally, it's an animal, something like that. You're not taking income out of it. There's a lot of ways to set it up, but finding the business thing will kind of help dictate that as well, right? So if that was that kind of the question, is kind of the precursor being some of those type of details. Veronica's typing.
Oh, is there a typing thing on here I can't see?
Well, I was starting to type.
There's a chat thing. Yeah.
But I think I see what Brittany's saying as far as kind of having a pre-class or something. And I don't know, for me, if I would see like the business logistics, like the C Corp and all of those kind of more tedious things coming before. But I think
Right.
I like her idea of having a pre-course just to like bring people together who maybe don't have an idea already, but think about asking these questions like, what's your problem? How could we solve
Yeah.
this? To get the, I
That's the
mean, like
part.
these
Yeah.
people that did the pre-course might never go into the full cohort because maybe they don't have a viable idea or decide, hey, this isn't my thing or
Mhm.
whatever. But I mean, I still think it'd be an interesting idea because there's probably people out there with good ideas that just haven't thought of them in this way. So I do
Yeah.
like that idea of a
That's
pre-course.
exactly what we're doing with the regular North Dakota Commerce programming is that we do workshops for 50 to 100 people before the 5 or 6 weeks before these actual cohort classes, because not everybody's going to come out of it saying, hey, I should go to the class, right? They're going to come out of it saying, well, I'm not really ready for it, or I don't have a great idea yet. They're not quite ready to go to that cohort. So these workshops are really meant to kind of start, incubating those ideas a little bit to the
Mhm.
point it's like, hey, there's something I can go to class with. So that might be exactly the solution to the question that was brought up.
Right. And one of the things to yes and what Jason was just saying is that, there's there's a derivative workshop that we run that's kind of like the advanced. If this is the intro, our advanced one is a shorter workshop that helps people think about the different aspects of their business focused on the lean canvas, which is really the one-page business plan. This is the core of what we're going to spend 10 weeks on. But occasionally we'll do a sprint just on this to get them to start thinking about their business model, which is what I hear you guys saying a little bit too. But again, this, and to figure out, we call it customer-driven innovation because you should spend time figuring out if anybody wants this idea. If no one wants it, if you can't get one person to buy your pet rock, you shouldn't go try to make a whole business around it, right? Let's figure out if anybody wants this. But before you figure out if anybody wants it, you need to figure out what it is first. And so I think that there's something in here to unpack a little bit, but that's the purpose of kind of these first two pieces as precursors to the I'll bring up my little timeline here. So the workshops come first in this ideation phase, and then we move them into our intro and advanced cohorts. Does that help? And if there was, if you guys were looking for something that was more customized, I mean, we would love to figure out, a solution that might even speak even more into this space to help, parents and caregivers and individuals with, a disability that wants to pursue a business idea.
Can you either now or in follow-up, like email of some sort, address what steps you take to present your workshop and the cohorts in various modalities to meet accessibility needs? And then if somebody's participating in the workshop in the cohort, are you able to actively engage with, I guess, and kind of navigate whether somebody's really understanding, and then are you able to adapt on the spot, or is there kind of a back referral process, or how would you approach that?
Well, that's the piece that we'd want to work with you guys on. We have not done an accessible cohort. I mean, we're still a little limited by the technologies of platforms that we're using. We have not done an integration effort yet. It's basically like if the browser is accessible, if someone's using accessible technology, that's one part of it. And then some of the teachbacks or some of the other aspects is something that we'd want to work with you guys on to make sure that we put those processes in place, to make sure that we're, teaching and training effectively, especially based on different learning styles, and if there are any cognitive or developmental disabilities that we need to work through to make sure that they're getting getting the full context and able to execute in the class. Does that make sense?
It does. I can see the benefits of building it, and I can also see the drawbacks from having to build it. I
Yeah.
guess. You're always going to have the individuality piece that you're going to have to tweak depending on who you're presenting to and who's
Correct.
receiving the information. But that would be my from the beginning, and all the questions is making sure that what you have to offer can be understood by anybody that we would advertise it to anyway, whether it be myself who needs things in different formats too, and if there's vision supports, or if there's needing voiceover, or if there's other things, and then that outside of the actual workshop or outside of the cohort activities support that individuals are likely to need.
Yeah. That we would definitely want to work with you guys on that. The cool thing about our program is that we really, we use auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learning. So we're really hitting a lot of different learning, ways to learn. But there would be some new ground that we would need to cover to really maximize it, especially if there are any learning other learning modalities that we would need to design for. And this is all about design. What do we need to design for, and how do we make it work for the learner? What other questions do you guys have? It's a great questions.
It almost seems like if we would go this track, it would be almost like a specialized track than from maybe your regular 30-person cohort or prep or whatever. So how would you see it working, or timeline wise, if we went forward with this, like us trying to help recruit people to get into that first phase with a larger group, and then move into the cohorts and kind of help create the supports that people need alongside you guys throughout or in advance? Like, how does that look timing, or how do you see that kind of flowing?
Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we probably, if we want to move forward, we probably just get a next step meeting to say, okay, what are we actually looking at? What kind of things do we need to take into consideration? Let us ask some questions too. We want to make sure that we're doing it right for the learners, and then kind of building a plan from there. So, that would be my thought on next step is, we probably have a lot more questions if we're going to move forward with this from our side. Make sure we have the right resources, make sure that we have an idea of, like I said, the 24 to 32 is our standard cohorts. I would think this would probably have to be quite a bit less. Maybe we could do it during the day. We could do 2 cohorts of 6 or 12 or something like that, but just kind of design based off of what we're talking about actually doing. Because at the end of the day, we want to get them through the content and hopefully out with their business idea ready to talk to customers, or having been validated and everything like that. So we're kind of backtracking, what do we need to tweak or change or do differently to achieve that?
Right.
So,
and that's not to say from our aspect, it's, we have a timeline and class time put together. It's also based on the presumption that the student is going to be in the class for 4 hours at a clip.
right.
If we need to change the duration of the class to meet the learner, that's our program is designed very modularly. And then also, like I was mentioning in the rural SEP program, we didn't do 4 hours a week. We did 8 hours a week. We just changed the design of the program to match the learner style and some of the additional supports and resources that need to be put in place. So those are the things that we'd want to design forward together. Even if the program needs to be longer than 10 weeks for some reason, that's where it's about customizing the program based on the constraints and what we need to do to maximize the experience for the learner.
And so with just a couple minutes left of the meeting, as far as next steps, setting up a next meeting, what should that look like? Who should be included in that? Like, I'm a little confused, or a little not sure where to go from here to continue the conversation, because we definitely want to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, you've got me and Nick. We'd probably bring in another facilitator, Heather. She's local there in North Dakota, and then just kind of sit down with whoever from you and your team. We want to ask questions like what's kind of the learners that we're talking about. What are some of the specific disabilities we need to be aware of? What kind of timeframes are we looking at? Like I said, 4 hours a night probably not going to work. We can definitely do during the day. In fact, we're preferring right now to do some things during the day because our evening cohorts are pretty full. So we could definitely customize something during the day, and then just start putting together a plan for what could this look like? How many learners are we talking about? What would the cost be? What would the timelines be? And how to come to you with a proposal on what it would take from our side to get it done once we have that conversation. So just setting the next meeting, I think we'd love to do that. So,
Yeah.
because we're very interested in doing this more than once too. So we're very keen on, hey, if we can
Right.
do this for you very, very well and get some of these entrepreneurs through this and succeeding, we want to do it for you again. But we also would love to take it to Minnesota and say, hey, we would love to do the cohorts for people with disabilities in Minnesota and Iowa and things like that. So we're very, very interested in building this, something that really works, and helps these entrepreneurs launch some really cool businesses. So would love to meet again. So.
You touched on some of my logistical type of questions. So if I'm not mistaken, Commerce is bringing on the ILT Academy regardless. Is that correct? Or did I misunderstand that? Okay, so that's something that's a go regardless for anybody who feels that it fits their needs and interests. And then the possibility to customize something that may fit other populations better is something you're willing to consider. Is that something that, more specifically, is that something that would fall under the already established contract that that Commerce has? Is that something you'd be looking for additional support and funding from the DD Council? What might that look like, either now or at the next meeting?
That's a good question. Carla, you might be better. I would think that the contract with North Dakota is set with the entrepreneur.
I think he was saying SETI
Things like that. So.
Oh, hold on, Jason, you broke up right when you.
Yeah, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I would think that we would probably need to look at additional funding sources. The Commerce RFP was very specific to SETI individuals, and basically the programming and the cohort timelines and all that are already set and built, and for the next 2 years pretty much in play. So that would be my initial thought. We could make some calls and ask some questions, but I kind of think it would probably be something in addition to, not in lieu of.
I would say that probably is correct. And that was part of what today's conversation was for, is to understand if this is something that, the folks that you are, the developmentally disabled folks that you are dealing with can just enroll and be a part of what Commerce is already doing with ILT Academy, or if we do need to look at something specific. And if so, then that would probably be an add-on, I would agree. And I think it was Brittany, you had asked if Commerce is planning on doing this, and the answer is yes. You might have missed my opening statement. We've received some federal funding, and so we went out for an RFP and awarded ILT Academy to run this program with us. And once we receive the funding from the feds, which we hope is in the very near future, we will sign that contract and start going. And so I think the conversation that we need to continue to have is, are there folks that you're working with that can fall in with what we're already doing, and or do we also want to look at something in addition to?
And not speaking on behalf of, but just my opinion, I think that honestly, it's both tracks. There could be outreach from us that would reach. There's such a spectrum of abilities and individuals. So there's numerous people that could probably partake in what you have to offer, or could be integral in telling what's missing, finding the link, or where it needs to divert off into a more individualized program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both tracks.
Yep.
This is Toby.
Totally agree.
I agree with Brittany in both tracks, but quite honestly, it's hard to know what kind of recommendations we could provide you with about how to best suit this for learners with disabilities
Mhm.
without knowing exactly what the course entails. I mean, obviously, I think we all can come to the conclusion that 4 hours all in a row at night is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so if you say we're going to do 2 hours twice a week, but what is the content in that 2 hours? Um, how fast are you teaching it?
Mhm.
What are the accessibility barriers? Like, I just feel like it's going to be something that changes and grows potentially every week. You're going to run into barriers that we didn't think about, that weren't discussed. But I'm having a
Ma-
hard time envisioning this. Like, how could we make it work without completely understanding your program, if that makes sense?
Maybe
I
as part
agree
of
with
the
that,
next
Toby.
meeting, we can show you we could actually kind of go into detail. Here's kind of what a module 1 looks like. Here's what we go over, and kind of really kind of deep dive into some of the course and curriculum and
Mhm.
timings, because it could be that, hey, we don't really need to change anything. We just need to slow it down and spread it out.
Right.
So, but yeah, we definitely open up, kind of our curriculum and some of our stuff to show you and get your feedback and teach you more about what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had a number of
What are your
we've had a number of students that have come through that have had, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, or as I mentioned, we had someone on the spectrum that was coming through, and and we had to change a couple things because the multi-step directions that we were giving were a little too quick, and that's something that we want to work on, and we want to work on it with the right groups that can help guide us through that process, so that we can make the program and design the program, and make it more accessible than it is today.
Ooh, food for thought on that? So you've mentioned two different areas of needs, and there's could be some overlap in need depending on exact, but between now and next meeting, if you guys would be able to even compile some of those adaptations and modifications that you've done previously, with or without information of a diagnosis, if you no longer have that information or if you weren't privy to it, but where you had to
We discovered it along the way.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
and that's that's fine too. I mean, because there's some where there's not going to be specific information, but much like
Right.
Toby said, and kind of you touched on here too, is my thoughts go to an accessible program will never be a constant. An accessible program is going to have to be fluid because it's not ever going to be this person with this diagnosis is going to need the information presented this way. It's going to have variability on age, supports, impact of their diagnoses on adaptation, on cognition, on all sorts of things.
Mhm.
So my thoughts are, honestly, do you guys feel that knowing your program the way you know it, that you might could brainstorm various ways that you could adapt it, and it would possibility of that being kind of a on the fly type thing. And so because again, you might have a cohort of 15 individuals, but 3 of them might need shorter sessions, 3 of them may need voiceover, 3 of them may need you know longer sessions because they don't have the supports outside of this. I mean, there's so many different variables, and then like you said, the multi-step is kind of an across the board difficulty, but even with myself, so it's
Me too.
there's so many different things, and yeah, my kids come by their quirks, honestly. So it's the need for the adaptations and the modifications, honestly, and the modifications are the parts that make you kind of take a deep breath because those are bigger changes. But to truly be to offer it accessibly, it's going to have to be individualized. It's going to have to be unique.
Oh,
And I know that that's not going to happen in every walk of life, but that's the goal.
Well,
Sometimes it's kind of close, even for our normal entrepreneurs or our ones that don't have special needs. We're always having to adapt to learning styles or speed, or I mean that's just entrepreneurship in general. If you're not agile, you're pretty much dead in the water right off the bat. So yeah, we'd love the challenge of trying to adapt to the situation, and how do we adapt our programming and things like that to fit the needs of the student. I mean, that's like I said, to a certain extent we do that in any way. I mean, we have to, sometimes we have one student out of the whole cohort that's just not getting it. We have to pull them over to the side of the road so the cohort keeps going. We catch them up on the side and we bring them back in and put them in the normal flow of traffic. And that's so I think we definitely have the ability to be very agile. So that's kind of part of a startup's life. So
I think that's the information that I would want to have in follow up is historically, if there could be some, not necessarily case scenarios, but case scenarios of how you've adapted or modified, and what you feel you have the ability and the knowledge and the background to do now, and what supports you guys would need to have more information to be able to make those types of decisions or programmatic changes. But so my thoughts are, how can the idea of how we can support what you have with the academy in making it, I guess, or informing and educating you guys even to be able to make those kind of step-by-step changes as needed. And you've already touched on a lot of it, and it's being receptive to it first and foremost, and then it's being, you're recognizing, and you obviously have some ways of kind of checkboxing to see if folks are following, if they're understanding it, if there's difficulty transitioning to the next part, next step, next module, whatever it may be coined. But I want to know more about that. Like, do you have an algorithm? Is it just your intuition? What is it that helped you identify that you needed to provide more for this individual or that, and how?
All right, you guys, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
We will take this step to schedule the next meeting. Nick and Julie and Jason, I will work with all of you to figure that out. And I will probably let Jason, you and Nick, run the next meeting with your platform and go that route.
Excellent.
Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? Anything before we end today?
I mean, I would just add, what we want to try to make this as accessible as possible, and use any assistive technologies that we can. The beautiful thing about a startup is that we can be very agile where other organizations and software platforms can't. The flip side of that is that there are a lot of things we haven't built yet, which is why we're excited to partner with you guys and figure out how to do this, so that we can make this more accessible and reach any entrepreneur that wants to do this. And our experience in and around the accessibility space is really what has kind of led us down this path. And I'm glad, Carla, that you heard that in the storytelling of what we've done with the Vitals app and the work that we've done with Pacer Center to help. But this is our first foray into this with this technology. So it is not on the scale of 1 to 100 in accessibility. We're definitely closer to the 10 mark than we are the 100 mark, but I hope working together, we can start getting it more in the other direction. So super excited about that.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for all your insight, your inputs. We will have another meeting and continue on.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. It's good meeting you all.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.